For staff, I think microphone's working. Thank goodness. You want me to start over? Just kidding. And also for staff, just a quick, if we can maybe bring back to the council to look at amending or considering amending our code. I wanted to try having a pilot program for some of the scooters that you see some around town. I recently rode some in another city, and it actually it was a lot better than they anticipated. And there's been a few residents that have asked, and I think it may be something that we could just try out, maybe like a 60 or 90 day time period. It may or may not work in our city. I know on smaller cities it doesn't always work, but I think it's something that maybe the council would want to consider, and I think it'd be nice. Our residents, may like it. So if we can do that, that would be great. And that concludes my comments, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I'd like to now have Councilmember Ashton.
All right, good evening, everyone. Glad to see that we got the mics working so I don't have to use my loud voice. So again, thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate the fact you took time out of your busy schedules to be here to watch your city in action. One event that I attended last Wednesday was the West Santa Ana branch presentation by Metro staff. So that's the light rail line that's going to go from Artesia through the city, through the southwest portion of the city of Downey into downtown LA. And so we had a great report given by the CEO of Metro, Phil Washington, as well as updates from Janice Hahn, Supervisor Janice Hahn, Supervisor Hilda Solis, and President of the Metro Board and Mayor of Inglewood, James Butts. So again, really good to see that the progress that we have coming along with that project. There are some funding shortfalls, but we're hoping to, be able to use some public-private partnership programs to help us find the funding to help fill those gaps and get that project done before the 2028 Olympics here in LA. So looking forward to to seeing more progress with that project as well. Hopefully we get that a little bit sooner than 2028, but definitely the goal is to get it done within the next 10 years. So. Also, I did have one item for staff as well. It'll come to me. With the recommendation that Councilmember Saab brought up with the scooters, I know we have the bicycle program can we get a report on that? Because there's the one that I always see off of by the parking structure. That rack is always empty, so I don't know if the bikes are just gone altogether or if they're maintaining it or what's going on. So if we can get a report on what's going on with that, I'd appreciate that. One other event that's coming up on the 21st as well, Councilmember Saab already mentioned the International Food and Music Festival. In the morning, Keep Downey Beautiful is going to start off their cleanup schedule this September at Rio San Gabriel Park in the riverbed. So the cleanup will start at 9 a.m. If you can get there at about 8:45, that'd be great, so we can get supplies passed out. And we will be in the north parking lot of Rio San Gabriel Park. So there's like the main parking lot and then the north one. So we'll meet in the north parking lot, because that's the closest to the riverbed with that. So other than that concludes my comments. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to start off with saying welcome, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting. It's always a pleasure seeing everyone and seeing everyone engaged in our council meetings. I do want to recognize two individuals in our council chambers. My parents, Mariana and Gonzo Pacheco. Thank you for joining me. A couple of events that I attended the City Affairs meeting on August 28th, where our fire chief did an excellent job in providing an overview and an update on our fire stations, so thank you. Also, I attended the groundbreaking ceremony over at Galden Park. As many of you have seen and have experienced, we're having numerous groundbreaking events at our parks, and this is just one of many, and there will be many more to come. And you'll see a lot of dust flying, and so I ask everyone to please be patient during this time. In the end, we will have beautiful parks, a new library, and 4 new beautiful fire stations. Also, I did want to mention last week I attended a workforce development conference, and being a member on City Council here in Downey, I'm a member of the policy board for Celico, which is a workforce development group here in Southeast LA. And the goal is to help individuals become gainfully employed and help employers find quality employees. And what was interesting and something that I learned at one of the sessions was about the gig economy, which I never knew about, which pretty much consists of independent contractors, and how there's several individuals who need part-time independent contracting jobs, such as Uber and Lyft drivers. Also, we learned about the baby boomer generation and how this generation doesn't necessarily want to retire, and how this generation is now having to deal with Generation X, millennials, and the new workforce group, Generation Y. So it was a great conference, and I learned a lot. Also, I wanted to mention that last Saturday, I attended the 40th anniversary of SCRS, Southern California Resource Services for Independent Living. This is an organization here in Downey. They've been located here in Downey since 1979, and they provide valuable resources for the disabled community. So it was a pleasure attending that event as well. And we've already heard of the numerous events that are happening in our city, but I did also want to mention that tomorrow, September 11th, Financial Partners is holding a credit union economic forum over at the Rio Hondo Event Center, and this will be from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the last event that I wanted to mention is on September 22nd, the Downey Symphonic Society is having an afternoon garden at the Rio Hondo Event Center on September 22nd again. So I hope you can attend all these numerous events that are happening here in the city of Downey. And again, I just want to thank everyone for being here. So next on our agenda, we have a public hearing. We have two public hearing items tonight. We have, it's to introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Downey approving a zone change designation for the property located at 7224 Florence Avenue, thereby converting the south 46 feet of the property from PB to R3, multiple family residential. The hour having arrived, the public hearing is now open. City Clerk Duarte, do you have the proof of publication?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Is there a motion and a second to receive and file?
So moved. Second.
So ordered by the Mayor Pro Tem. City Clerk Duarte, have you received any correspondence on this matter?
We have not, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. City Manager Olivas, is there a staff report?
Madam Manager, there is a staff report to be presented by Mr. Schindler's, your staff.
Yes, it's going to be presented by our city planner, Crystal Landavazo.
Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. Before you tonight is a request for a zone change designation for a property located at 7224 Florence Avenue, which is currently developed with 6 separate dwelling units, single story of varying sizes. The subject property, again, is located on the south side of Florence Avenue and is currently maintained with 2 separate zoning designations. R3, is it? Get closer. Okay. I apologize. We were just trying to make sure that the voice was picking up. But as shown on the slide in front of you, the majority of the property has an R3 zone designation. The rear 46 feet has the PB zoning designation. The subject property was reviewed by the Planning Commission at the June 19th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. A public hearing was held and the Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve a 12-unit development that consists of 6 separate buildings, 2 units per building, as shown above you. The Planning Commission approval also included a recommendation that the City Council approve a rezoning of that rear 46-foot PB zone to have an R3 designation for the entire lot. What is shown before you is the PB zone at the rear of the property. The PB zone is a zone that no longer exists within our zoning code. A 2008 update eliminated the PB zone when staff found that the intent of the buffer zone was that it, which is the 46 feet that is outlined here for you, could be maintained by requiring setback requirements, which, as you can see here, due to the 46-foot setback requirement, additionally with parking requirements, other items in there, we achieve a 94-foot 2-inch setback from the rear property line, which is more than what was required by the PB zone previously. If approved, the zoning change will allow for the development of a 12-unit multifamily project to move forward. The proposed buildings will have a craftsman-style architectural style, provided with a traditional front porch, weathered brick veneer, horizontal hardy plank, and several access features such as the recessed windows. Landscaping will be provided in the 15-foot front yard setback as well as throughout the project site. So before you tonight, staff is recommending that the City Council approve the proposed zone change to designate the subject site as R3 multifamily residential, consistent with the area and the general plan designation. And this concludes staff's report.
Thank you. Do any members of the council have any questions or comments?
No. So just to be clear, PB no longer exists in our code, right?
That's correct.
So this is just cleaning up old verbiage, I guess you could say.
Essentially, yes.
What is going to go in that, where that area that's 94 feet, is it going to be consistent with what's there now? Is it going to be what's going to be there?
Sure. So what you can see up on the site plan is primarily landscaped area. There will be some play equipment on the on this side of the property, and then toward the other side, there's going to be a barbecue and picnic area.
Okay, it's going to look nice. Very well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will now open this item for public comment. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak regarding this matter? I will entertain a motion and a second to close public comment.
Second.
Is there a motion and second to introduce the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote.
The motion was approved with Mayor Rodriguez and Councilmember Frometa excused.
Thank you. Second item, introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Downey amending various sections of Article 6 and Article 9 of the Municipal Code regarding regulations for the establishment and operation of massage establishments. The hour having arrived, the public hearing is now open. City Clerk Duarte, do you have the proof of publication?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Is there a motion and a second to receive and file?
So moved.
Second.
So ordered by the Mayor Pro Tem. City Clerk Duarte, have you received any correspondence on this matter?
We have not, Mayor Pro Tem.
City Manager Olivas, is there a staff report?
Madam Mayor, our city planner did such a nice job, we're going to ask her to come up and do it again.
Good evening once again. So we'll go back in time a little bit to refresh the council's mind. In 2008, the state of California adopted the Massage Therapy Act, which established a nonprofit organization known as the California Massage Therapy Council. This council created a certification program for massage therapists. The adoption of this act also restricted local authority over massage technicians and resulted in an increased number of massage establishments in many jurisdictions, including Downey. In 2018, staff noted a peak interest for massage establishments after neighboring communities adopted ordinances prohibiting these uses. Additionally, in 2018, a police investigation found illicit activity was occurring within some of the massage establishments in the city. Some of these resulted in arrests. Because of the severity of the crimes that may occur, the City Council adopted urgency ordinances at their October 9th meeting. Was the first moratorium that was adopted for a 45-day period. That was followed in November 13th, where an extension was adopted for 10 months and 15 days. These moratoriums were adopted and staff was directed to assess the existing municipal code and return with appropriate amendments. And that is what we are doing here tonight. So for the council's clarification, staff has surveyed surrounding cities. 10 different jurisdictions were evaluated, including Cerritos, Brea, Fullerton, and Orange, to serve as a guide for staff in identifying potential new standards. Typically, what we found in these ordinances were that massage establishments were required to hire only California Massage Therapy Council certified technicians. The CAMTC certification process requires that they go through a background check at the state level, and this is then carried over into the cities. These jurisdictions also required that massage establishments meet specific facility and operational standards, such as maintenance of records for all services performed. Additionally, these jurisdictions require regular renewals of background checks, which is something that our code did not previously require. And they require if there is any conviction that occurs within that renewal period, then they're no longer able to continue operation of the massage establishment. So one of the things that we were able to find, in addition to surveying surrounding jurisdictions, we did another review of the Massage Therapy Act and all of the subsequent renewals and amendments that came after. What we were able to find, again, is that the cities were limited in regard to how we were able to regulate the individual massage practitioners. However, what cities were still allowed to do was use local land use authority to regulate the massage establishments themselves. And that is how we crafted the amendments to the proposed ordinance before you tonight. The amendments proposed will retain the existing background check requirements for operators of massage establishments who do not have the CAMTC certification. Additionally, the amendments will require any partner with a 5% interest or more to also complete a background check.
Can I ask a question? So the background check, what standard do we hold the background check? So, I mean, something comes back, a hit on something, right? Something that's, I guess, innocuous to massage, right? Something else. What standard are we holding them to?
Sure. So our background check is tied to the police permit that is required for these types of uses. So the police, when we have worked with them, they have their set establishment. So certain types of crimes trigger certain types of concerns. So if there's anything related to prostitution, sex crimes, those types of things that they were convicted of in another city where they had a similar establishments, those are obviously red flags, and those would prohibit us from being able to approve such a use. The police department is here tonight, and we can check with them in regard to what the criteria is for not passing. Typically, those are the items that we're going to be most concerned with. If it was a speeding ticket, those types of things.
Right, but that's why, I mean, I just want to make sure how arbitrary it's going to be, right? Is it going to be someone at the station that decides, you know, is a DUI going to prohibit someone, is not? I mean, maybe a captain can answer that, I don't know.
There are certain violations of the penal code that are outlined in the municipal code that trigger, a denial, and a lot of those have to do with like sexual related crimes, convictions, drug activity convictions. There's also criteria for providing truthful information in the application, but they're pretty well defined.
Okay.
Okay. So again, the background check requirement will be required. Operators will be required to renew the background check and their police permit on a 2-year cycle. The proposed amendments will also introduce a revocation procedure so that if it's found that they are not able to obtain a police permit, there is a revocation procedure. They will be notified as to the reasons why, and there's an appeal process for them to follow as well. Additionally, facility and operational requirements are being adopted into the proposed amendment to set standard business operations for all massage practitioners and establishment owners. Okay. At their meeting of August 21st, the Planning Commission reviewed and held a public hearing for the proposed massage amendments before you tonight. The Planning Commission did not identify any concerns with the proposed amendments. They had general questions with regard to the terminology. They requested clarification as to certain terms and definitions that were being utilized. And there was one speaker at the public hearing who was in general support of the amendments and was looking to later open their own massage establishment. The Planning Commission unanimously approved the resolution requesting that the city, or recommending that the City Council approve the amendments for the massage establishment. On this slide before you, you'll see what the proposed review and approval process would be for a massage establishment. Any person coming in with a general inquiry as to how they can open a massage establishment would be directed to the planning department. When they go to the planning department, they would be given a conditional use permit application, explain the process, that a background check will be required as part of that CUP, and we will explain and walk them through all of the operational standards, request that they provide us a business plan, work with them as far as getting the business plan to show what all of the code requirements are. It will be presented to the Planning Commission if approved. After passing the background check, then an inspection will be conducted prior to opening the business to ensure the facility requirements are also being complied with. And there is provision in there so that the police department or any representative of the city can inspect the property to ensure compliance is maintained. And again, there is a renewal requirement every 2 years for a business owner. And this concludes staff's report, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Do any members of the council have any questions or comments?
Yeah, so going back to the massage therapists, they're certified by the state. How do we ensure that each business is, I know how we do it. How often will we ensure that each establishment is using only state certified massage therapists?
So there's essentially 3 points where that will happen. The initial is when they're seeking their original approval, the CUP process, we obtain a list. Secondly is if there is any type of action. The city is signed up for the CAMTC notifications. So anytime that there is any type of change to a technician, we are notified of any technician who registers the city of Downey as their place of residence or their place of business. If there's a change to that, then we're notified and we're given the address of the location. So we would contact that business owner and notify them that they need to update their information. Okay. And then additionally, at the 2-year cycle, we require that they refresh their list of technicians.
Okay, so my concern was, answered with the state sending us notification. If there's a change in something, then we can go and check up on it after, once we get notification from the state. So,
that's correct.
Thank you.
And it's only the owner that gets background check, not like a manager?
It would be the business owner. The business owner is the one responsible for the establishment and all operations that occur within it.
Any further questions?
Not for now. Thank you.
No. Thank you. Great job. I will now open this item for public comment. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak regarding this matter? I will entertain a motion.
There's a speaker, madam.
Can you please come to the...
Can you please come forward?
How about massage therapists? Are they going to be getting check background, and how often are they switching staff?
So I think
Because I understand that right now it's just going to be just for the owner, but what about the employee, the rest of the staff?
I think they had to be certified by the
so
state.
they're certified by the state. So all their background stuff, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but it comes through the state of California because they have to certify to make sure that they're meet the requirements for the massage therapists, and any background check would go through the state of California for those therapists that are certified.
Does that include those $20 massage on Florence and Lakewood? Is that something?
We can go ahead and so if you have more questions, and then I'll have Crystal come up and answer those questions for you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Did you have any other further questions? Did you have any other questions? No.
Okay.
The individual technicians, as Councilmember Ashton identified, are required to get their background check through CAMTC, and that is renewed on a 2-year cycle as well. So they are continuously updating their background check. In regard to the $20 massage, I believe that's, that there are locations that have a set price for an hour, smaller, larger facilities. This applies to all establishments throughout the city.
All massage places.
Correct.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? I will now entertain a motion and a second to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
So ordered by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a motion and a second to introduce the ordinance?
Move to introduce ordinance.
Second.
Please vote.
The motion was approved with Mayor Rodriguez and Councilmember Frometa excused.
Thank you. Next, non-agenda public comment. Now is the time for non-agenda public comment. Before we begin the non-agenda public comment period, I would like to remind members of the audience of the city's meeting rules contained in the Downey Municipal Code. Members of the audience who wish to address the city council during non-agenda public comment are prohibited from engaging in any conduct that disrupts or interferes with the meeting, such as yelling, screaming, cheering, or whistling. If a speaker engages in conduct that disrupts or interferes with the meeting, I will ask the city manager to have the speaker removed from the chambers until the end of the non-agenda public comment period. I remind speakers that each person has 5 minutes to speak on non-agenda items and that your comments be addressed to me and not to any other council member or staff member. Please state your name for the record. Those wishing to speak may now come forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Congratulations, Ms. Pacheco.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Serrano. I'm a resident of Downey for going on 24 years now. And just coming over here today, just coming home from work, actually, I was thinking, hey, what words can I put together to convey the importance of, having access to different things. And specifically, I came here a few weeks ago, and I commented on what a great job basically Parks and Recs has done, and they did a tremendous job under a lot of adversity. The adversity continues to be, overwhelmingly put on Parks and Recs to carry out a lot of things. I see somebody new in Parks and Recs. I don't know him yet, but I will know him. So I came here and I congratulated Heidi, the mayor, Rick Rodriguez. He said, we should recognize what an effort it was. It was an effort. I mean, the first day of the camp, there was a ditch, cut in front of the courts so that 57 children, had to figure out a way to get into the courts. I organized the camp at the beckoning of Heidi, and it was successful in a lot of ways. In the last 2 weeks, they closed the courts that we were on, and I didn't take it personally at the time. I really didn't. But we went ahead and moved to Furman Park. It's closer to my house, and I was happy about that, actually. But there was, really absolutely no reason to close that, because there was no work that had begun, and it would have been good to we lost some kids. We've got to still get their badges and their certificates out. Today I'm coming about one more thing, which I've had discussion, and I've requested records about the removal of a court at Furman Park. There's 4 courts there right now, and literally right now they're overwhelmed, not only because Independence Park is closed and getting resurfaced, which we're real happy that it is getting resurfaced, but there's a removal of the court and a conversion to a basketball court, a multi-purpose court of some kind. And I'm trying to think. I've been here 24 years. And most of the time, we see there's an agenda that's published, and I didn't get any notice of that until about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I did take it up with the Parks and Recs, and I'm trying to clarify exactly how it came to the decision. There's some survey that was taken, and obviously no one has walked over there. Even tonight, with the fence and all the radon on Tebby kind of look of new construction, it's really kind of sad. The removal of the court is just unacceptable. How can you remove a court when there's so much demand? That's one of the things that I've tried to convey this issue in a logical manner, and I'm running out of time. So, but I have other people that are willing to come up, and they're going to come speak. So, there are more people that want to speak on this. They're basically diametrically opposed to it, and it should be reconsidered. It needs to be reconsidered. Not only because of the city council, there's a gentleman that's city council that's been here a long time, but the founders of this city founded those courts to be played on, not only for our children, for the community. And I'm a retired educator, and I know that there's a connection to an academic success with tennis. I love all sports. I've been coaching everything. I've coached football, everything. So I'm not against any sport. I'm not against children playing basketball. I played basketball myself, so I'm out of time.
Thank you.
Unless somebody wants to relegate me, I only have like maybe a couple more minutes, but I wish to readdress and to convey, that I'm diametrically opposed
Yes.
to converting that. That basketball doesn't coexist with tennis.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Joan. I do remember you from the last council meeting, so thank you for attending. And the gentleman to my left, his name is Jason, and he's subbing in for Pam.
please, for Ms. Paso.
Yes.
Okay.
City Manager Leos, do you want to mention anything?
Sure. Well, why don't we get the rest of the speakers up, and then we can, that way I don't have to repeat myself.
Thank you,
If there's
Joe.
anything that needs to be said.
Hi, my name is Shade Neri. So if you weren't already aware, today is September 10th, and it's actually World Suicide Prevention Day. And I wanted to bring the attention of the council, if you weren't already aware of this important day. And I also mainly wanted to say thank you, because I do realize that there are services that the city does provide. I did previously speak to the Director of Parks and Recreations, Pam, and she did inform me about the services that the city does provide, how the police does interact with people that need help with mental health issues, and also TLC and different things that the city does do. So I want to say thank you for the things that you do, and I think it's really important to recognize what the city does, especially on a day like this where it's really important to remember the things that organizations and communities do to help other people. But I also do want to make a suggestion to say that maybe we can recognize this day to want to further how we recognize mental health. And maybe one of the ways we can do this is having a community event involving mental health. Councilmember Saab mentioned that we do like a food festival, and maybe we can have not a festival necessarily, but an event that involves mental health and awareness and advocacy to seek help within the city, or just talking about it in general, coming from the city. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Can I say something regarding
Yes.
that? If I may, the YMCA is having a mental health day of education in November. I can give you my card, and I can let you know what day it is. They just let me know yesterday, and it's supposed to be the first of its kind, and it's a focus on mental health. So
Thank you.
for whatever it's worth.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ann Walters, and I have been a resident of Downey for 50 years. I've seen this community grow and change and evolve, and I also was a school teacher here for 27 years. I taught first grade. I might have had some of your kids. Anyway, I live on a corner where there is a sidewalk and a parkway. At the front of my house, I live on a small, about a 10-house cul-de-sac. And the other day, I saw a young man walking across my yard, and I'm very curious. I went out and spoke to him. Said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, we're measuring up your house so we can plant a tree there." And I said, "Plant a tree there? I never wanted any tree planted here." So he went on to explain that Downey has decided to embrace a proposal from the tree people to plant trees. And I thought, well, that's nice if the residents want one, but I just spent about $800 having a tree taken out of my front yard because of the sewer problems, because of the sprinkler systems, having shallow roots that are difficult to mow. And so I was floored that this decision to plant trees was being done without the permission of the residents. Now, I've been working on my house lately. I've got a landscaper lined up to put in my plants that I want to have planted in my yard. And I just really don't approve of the fact that the city is going to just automatically decide for me that I'm going to have a tree. I've talked to my neighbors. Almost all of them agreed with me that they didn't want a tree in their front yard. And if we've got so much money that we can afford to provide maintenance for these trees, why don't we have enough money to fix the sidewalks and the potholes? I'm old. When I go walking, I don't want to trip on a crack on the sidewalk. I think that it's important to provide safety for people to walk, let alone putting in a tree. So that's all I have to say. I just wanted to let you know that I did call the name on the little card that was hung on my door and issued my opinion. And he did call me back, but I wasn't there when he called me back. So I appreciate that, but I would also like to hear from you why you think this is an important thing for residents to have. So, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. And we do care about our streets and our sidewalks. As many of you will see, there's going to be a lot of construction happening here in our city with a lot of improvements being done, not only to our parks, but also to our streets.
Yeah. Ma'am, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate them. We actually had a discussion about trees last week. Quite a number of people brought up some comments about trees. So the tree people are involved in a Caltrans grant that requires, not so much a grant, it's a requirement because of the expansion of the I-5 freeway. There are a number of trees that we're required to take and be planted in the city. And so it's one of the things that we also came out of our last meeting is that we would take a pause and find out exactly where we would plant those trees and which neighborhoods were more appropriate or which neighborhoods really wanted them, because there's only so many trees that we have anyway, so not everybody's going to want one and that wants one and so forth. So we're taking a pause on that, taking a look at sort of some mapping on that to make sure that we plant them in the appropriate locations where people do want them. But most of this is mandated because of the I-5 expansion freeway, and we do have a tree master plan. As far as the sidewalks and the amount of work, this particular council has spent roughly about $15 million a year in streets. There's never enough, just put it that way, but it's more than we've ever spent on trees in the prior 20 streets. Prior to probably the last 15 years or so. So we've been consistently spending more money on streets and road work. If you just drive throughout the city, you'll see, Florence and Lakewood and some of the major thoroughfares get work, and we, on an annual basis, rotate the streets by quadrant and district in terms of where we do some repairs. Is it enough? It's never enough, but it's significantly more than we've ever done, and then we'll continue to do that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Edna Ibarra, and I've been a public school teacher for over 25 years. I was here last time at the Downey City Council, and just to clarify, previously, Coach Serrano, you told him that you would answer or get back to him after everyone commented, but then after the lady in front of me had these questions that were answered at the last meeting, you took your time to respond to her. So are we like being selective as to who you respond to? So I'm here again because I'm here again because of the lack of transparency in this city. I believe that good politicians should reflect on as to why their constituents are upset or frustrated, just as like the lady ahead of me. I've heard that the city said that they sent out a survey about what to do with the Furman courts, and I want to know who was surveyed, because I live across the street and I never received a survey. My children did not receive a survey about taking out the tennis courts, nor did the YMCA or Rio Hondo School. So I would like to take a look at that survey and see what questions were asked. And like Coach Serrano said earlier, I'm not against any sport, but I would like the kids here in Downey to have a chance to play tennis like other middle and upper class communities around here. Like I said, my family used the tennis courts, but obviously now they're not available. When I used to jog around the park, because now the park is totally closed, you see on the courts, you see mostly families, kids, and college-age students, young adults who enjoy playing tennis. Everyone there is respectful and courteous. Like I said again, I'm not against basketball or basketball players. I no longer see the senior citizens enjoying Furman Park for a walk. I no longer see new moms jogging. I no longer see people nursing injuries because the park is closed. I also want to comment about the street resurfacing. Like you said, Blanca Pacheco, that the streets are going to be fixed. I did last week turn in a request for, for the pavement to get checked on Basinger Street, and I'm aware that I have to wait 30 days for a response. And once again, I know I have a minute, but here, Downey residents are exercising their freedom of speech, and I want to clarify that I'm not here with a group, or I'm not here because I know someone that will benefit from my comment, like the Downey Patriot assumed in its last print. I'm not part of a group, but I can be. We know that re-election is coming up. So I would like you to hear the Downey residents and hear their voices and take them seriously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Maria, and I'm also talking about the trees. I called the tree people. They gave me a list of all the trees. I looked them up. I looked up on the internet. And I found out that some of these trees that they're planning to plant have toxins, high emissions of something, I don't know, biogene or something, and also they're poisonous to humans or children. Well, I have grandchildren. I don't want my kids there. I don't want myself there. Well, I guess I need to know, can I have a type of tree I want to plant? I don't care if you guys plant a tree, but can I choose a tree? And because my kids are important to me. And also talking about the street pavements, and you're talking about Florence, between Downey and Brookshire, it's a mess. There's potholes everywhere. I go down that street every day, and there's potholes everywhere.
What street is that, Florence?
Between Brookshire and Downey Avenue. It's terrible. I mean, I live on Ravelier Drive, and they paved one side, but they forgot about our side. And I know they go in sections, and I understand that part. But we all pay taxes here. We all pay our little, well, we got to pay. So what's happening? I don't know, and it's going back and forth to trees and streets, but Caltrans can't even take care of the trees on the freeway, or the bushes and shrubbery on the freeway, trash on the freeway. How are they going to maintain my tree? I don't know. So like I say, my opinion, I don't need a tree. And if I do need a tree, give me a tree that my kids can live with, or that we can all live with, and also fix my streets. That's it.
Thank you.
The tree that keeps on giving.
The giving tree.
My name is Adriana Alvarez. I am a reporter, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm a grandfather, I'm a lot of things. But today, I'm here to give you a perspective that perhaps might help in you coming to the realization that preserving the tennis courts in Furman Park is a good idea. So I want to speak on this issue from the angle of diversity. I coach soccer, I coached basketball and baseball, and I'm an organizer with primarily with immigrant Latino kids. And one of the things is typically our youth in any park, in any inner city, what you get always is basketball courts and soccer fields. A lot of people have heard of Chicharito, they heard of Maradona, famous soccer players, but a lot of kids don't know of Ricardo Alonso Gonzalez, as an example. And you might have heard, Pancho Gonzalez, he was referred to, he was one of the greatest tennis players of all time. And a lot of our youth don't know about Pancho Gonzalez. A lot of people are impressed in the recent, apart from the greatness, like the Williams sisters are great, because they also stand out in a sport that predominantly has been seen as a white sport. So diversity in sports is also a good thing for our youth to have other possibilities than just, even in sports, sometimes we're stuck, in certain ideas of what kind of sports we play. Like if you're Mexican like me, you play soccer. But the truth is that it's good to open different possibilities of what kids can do. I ended up with my kids playing basketball, even though I started with them playing soccer. So you never know. And this park also, the reality is the demographic is changing. We have a lot of Latin American, Mexican population. The name of this park is hard for me to pronounce. I'm not trying to make fun, but it sounds like the fear kind of thing. It makes me nervous when I pronounce it. So it might be even a good idea to name some of these courts after people like Pancho Gonzalez, to simultaneously acknowledge, the people that have thrived and succeeded and become role models, like Arthur Ashe in tennis. So consider sports, diversity, and the history of how some of our greatest heroes for civil rights have come out of the sports tradition, including tennis. So it would be a good thing for the youth in Downey And now that your school district is open, you're getting kids from all over the place, a lot of brown kids. It would be a good thing to have the possibility to play something other than soccer, other than just basketball. And it's good that we see kids playing tennis, golf, and see what kind of greatness is developed. So consider the history of the sport. Consider the names have been buried, because of all the things about the struggles of minorities in a dominated society of European descent. So we have Pancho Gonzalez to look up to for any kid that wants to practice the sport. So consider that. And hopefully there's a lot of trees in that park. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, council members. My name is Jackie Cardona. I've been here before. I've been very active in my community. Right now I'm currently Neighborhood Watch Captain. And one of the issue that I want to bring up is one that's been plaguing our city that I'm sure you've heard multiple times, and that's the issue that we're having with transients and homelessness. I live in the Rio San Gabriel area, and not a week goes by that we don't have an issue. Not a week goes by. When the police have to be called, we have, our neighbors have been very active. We've started, we have our neighborhood watch. We have, where we're texting each other group message. We're on the neighborhood app. We have the Ring app, the majority of us. We've done as much as we can. We go out there, we meet, we walk. Our issues that we're having is the transient population is becoming more brazen. And just in the last month alone, we had an issue with, there was somebody I actually saw by one of my neighbor's cars. I looked out the window, I actually made a motion so they could see me, and they waved back at me. They didn't even bother to move. It wasn't, my husband actually had to run out the house. They were the usual with the hoodies, on the bikes, at about midnight, and then they took off on their bikes. Yesterday, we had an issue with someone that was coming, peddling, offering some type of service who was very aggressive with multiple neighbors. We all contacted each other on our group chat. We called the police. They ended up showing. Later that evening, at about almost midnight, somebody came back to the neighborhood who we believe by the features, one of them, the person had dreadlocks with the hoodie, who came yelling obscene comments to us, calling us racist, that we had, calling us all kinds of names. We believe it was the same person that Downey PD had escorted out of the area, though the person had not committed a crime. And I believe our police department is doing a great job, but there's only so much they can do, and there's only so much we can do. Our neighborhood, we've had multiple homes, including my own, that we've invested in our property. Thousands of dollars in my home alone, close to $100,000, doing a complete remodel, doing a landscape, and we don't even feel safe sometimes even coming out. Again, they're so brazen now. They're coming in like they own the city, and I want to know, what can the city do? Again, I have a lot of respect for our Downey PD. So does the community where I live in. Rio San Gabriel is the neighborhood where I live in. But again, we feel like we can't even come out sometimes. And I don't want to live in a city like that. And this has, I brought this up maybe a few years ago, and actually Councilmember Ashton is the one that approached me and said, you should join. This is how I found out about Downey Crime on Facebook. I joined it. Like I said, I've done as much as I can. My neighbors have as well. And I know there's, certain laws that they're not breaking the law. And unfortunately, we live so close to the Rick's Motel. That the donut shop that's there, and they walk around like they own it. And I know part of it is also mental health issues, but we also know, and speaking to the police that helped us with the neighborhood watch, we also know there's just people that's their lifestyle. They're transients. That's they don't want. I don't want to pass judgment, but there's certain, if they go to, if they get help somewhere, they can't use drugs. So again, I'd like to know what are going to be the steps, because at this point, like I said, I know Downey Police Department has done what they can. They come when we call. We've done what we can. We've been as proactive as we can. Like I said, Ring, the neighborhood app, the Downey Crime Watch on Facebook. We have each other on a network. But what else can we do? And like I said, at this point, I mean, we've even quite honestly thought about selling our home. And I love my kids grew up here. They graduated from schools here. They're both already in college. But I don't want to run from the problem. But I'd like to know, what else can we do? One other quick thing. Unfortunately, because we live across from, there's some like apartments. We don't even know sometimes who's parked there because there's so many cars. We actually asked about preferential parking, how we can get a permit. But we were told we needed to pay, there's like a $5,000 parking, an inventory that needs to be done. We've got the paperwork. Well, the community has to pay my neighborhood $5,000 just so they can assess the problem to see if we qualify for preferential parking. And that to me seems quite unfair. And that was emailed to me by the Downey PD by Ms. Aguirre. And so, again, I'd like to know what can be done. And parking is one of the huge issues because we don't know who's coming in and out because there's cars parked there all of the time. So thank you for your time.
Is that, I'm sorry, Rio San Gabriel Park or school? Because there's two.
We live on the Pellet Pangborn area,
So the
closer
park.
closer to the park. But like I said yesterday, we think it's a person that came back vindictive, yelling on the top of his lungs, calling us names. And my wonderful neighbors actually came out. My husband works nights, but they came out, but then they couldn't find him. We're like, did he come back to try to hurt us? So that's how brazen they're becoming. They don't care, or they seem not to care. So we'd also like to see if there can also be more patrol in the area, especially early morning hours when it seems, and I know it's not only the neighborhood I live in. Unfortunately, it's what's going on in different communities in different areas, not only our own.
Thank you.
But thank you.
And thank you for coming to our council meeting. What I do want to commend you on is being involved in your neighborhood. Being involved in Neighborhood Watch really makes a big difference. Alerting your neighbors as to any suspicious activity. You're doing a good thing. And in reality, this is a situation that we're experiencing throughout the state and in other states as well. And we're doing everything that we can. And you'll actually notice there's less homeless. You encounter less homeless individuals here versus in other cities. And as you mentioned, we do have a great police department, but all we can do is be more vigilant and try to protect our neighbors. And in regards to preferential parking, I don't know if our city manager wants to mention anything.
Preferential parking is a big issue, right? So it's one of the issues that we have. If you look at the city is about 40% renter occupied. That's the housing makeup in the city. When Downey was built out, the average family had 1 car, 2 cars, and most of those apartments were built for 1, 2 cars at the most in terms of parking. What's happening now in the economy is that kids and people are living in the same household that they grew up in. So now that instead of having 1 or 2 cars, you have 4 cars. And where do those people park? And they end up parking on the street. It's a real challenge because you can't mandate how many people live in a particular apartment or how many cars they have or in a particular neighborhood. Even in single-family dwelling neighborhoods, you have people that don't use their garages. It's filled with stuff and they park on the street as well. And so it's a real challenge to tackle that. We'd probably solve the Middle East before we solve the parking problem. So it's a real challenge. It's not a cop-out. I'm just telling you the reality of what we're up against. In terms of the homelessness issues that came up as well, those are things, if you look at, we do an annual count. Our annual count has actually been pretty stable, where most cities it's gone up. City of Los Angeles, for example, went up 16%. So ours has been pretty stable. We've done a huge commitment on the prevention side because you spend so much more dollars on the back end. It costs twice as much more. So we've been spending much more on the prevention side to keep our numbers down. And so we fund a couple of nonprofits that do that. Our mayor is spearheading a lot of this, Rick Rodriguez, in our clergy council, because the answer isn't always the government side of things. It's the nonprofits and the churches, and they're getting involved to help keep those numbers down. We acknowledge it's frustrating, but if you look at the amount of money we're spending on the prevention side to keep those numbers down, we continue to do that. Every time we get a complaint about the homeless camps in the riverbed, they get moved out and they end up in the streets, right? Or we push them out of our town, they go into Santa Fe Springs, and then they move back this way. Santa Fe Springs pushes them out and they move them this way. So it's a continual problem, but our effort is to continue to be vigilant and make sure that we do that. So that said, I haven't forgot about Mr. Serrano's comment, because he did say that there was other people speaking about the tennis courts. That's why I haven't addressed it quite yet, until I know that everybody's had a chance to speak on that issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Manager, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council.
Good evening.
I was just crying. I'm sorry, but I was just crying. I've lived here for 30 years. I raised my son here. I used to be able to leave my door open. My son went to junior high here. He went to elementary. He went to high school. He was in Downey swimming team, Downey water polo team. Now I hate this city with a passion. I hate it. I hate it. I cry almost every day here when I exit my home. Sorry, but I am so upset with this issue. My name's Maria Baruman, and I've lived here in Downey for 30 years. Now the homeless are coming into our streets and yelling nonstop out of their guts, nonstop yelling. I've had to call the police 3 times this week because of the Rick's Hotel and the donut shop. This crisis has to be treated with urgency. Something has to be done before it is too late. The donut shop located on 9512 Firestone Boulevard. It's a hangout for them. I spoke to the donut shop owner last year. They said they buy from them. They buy from them fine, but they hang out there the whole day. We can't go to that shopping center to do our threading. There's a threading business. The young lady that works there told me that the police department told her, that's a homeless area. That's not a homeless area, that's our area. We pay taxes here. That's not their area. And something has to be done about this. And there's also a tent right behind Woodruff and the railroad tracks. There's a tent there. I don't know your answer. I don't know my answer. I just know I read something about 7-Eleven to push them out of the 7-Eleven. They have classical music now. You could Google that. I read that today. What are you gonna do? What is the city gonna do to get them out? You know what, I'm from Cuba. My dad had to leave a communist country because of Castro and the Castro regime. Now these homeless are gonna push me out of my home that I paid for. I'm almost a senior citizen already. Where am I gonna go? And taxes are gonna go up like, this is really killing me. They're going there with their cards. They go with their cards and they start putting stuff on Firestone. I can't even walk to the mall. I can't even drive my car to the donut shop. I'm sorry I'm crying, but I've had it with Downey. I've had it with California as a whole, really. Thank you for your time, and I really hope something gets done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Temp and members of the council and Parks and Recreation. My name is Johnny Ramirez. I've been in the city for about 21 years, and I'm coming here to speak to you about the tennis courts. My grandson grew up in Downey here, and he goes to Warren High, just made the JV's team in tennis. And my wife and I go and play with him at the tennis courts in Furman Park, and we use Apollo Park quite often. We're also members of the senior club at Barbara Riley. But I'm here to speak on behalf of that particular tennis court, that wondering if Parks and Recreation could maybe amend from putting the particular court there, and I know that it has asphalt already there where they can put up the poles and build a quick basketball court, but amend it so then maybe they could choose a different location for it. And that's what I'm here for, to support Coach Serrano here and all the people that he teaches at that particular park. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
One more on the tree business. My name is Margaret Weiser. I live on Danvers Street near the 5 freeway. I do not want a tree. We bought our home in 1965, never had a tree. You have to remember that us elderly people, we keep our lawns to a minimum of work. I have enough problems with my neighbor's trees, and I don't want a tree. Please put me on the list. I think you should allow the people to say whether they want a tree or not. They're beautiful, but they're a pain in the butt.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Excuse me, I'm sorry, you already spoke.
No, but she spoke during the thing.
On the massage, oh,
Yeah.
that's true. Sorry about that.
Okay. I'm with them too. I'm here for the tree. I do not want a tree in my house. I've been in Downey for 25 years. I had a tree removal 10 years ago. And I know it's a state, and you guys feel obligated because it's through the state. But I spoke with somebody and told me that the Downey, you guys can decide where the trees can go. So if I don't want a tree in my house, there's plenty of room, Paramount, there's a lot of construction going on there. You can put those trees there. There's the parks, you can put trees at the park. There's a lot of places where they can put the trees. So that's all I need to say.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
Oh, boy, I wish all the tree people, anti-tree people were here. Last time, we had the people that wanted us to plant the trees, just as many people, so.
Good evening, my name is Rose.
So make sure you come back when it comes to come up.
Good evening, my name is Rosie McCormick, and I'm also a resident of Downey. For the last 30 years, both my sons went to elementary school, junior high, and Downey High here. I've also had issues with transients in my neighborhood. I lived on 7th Street between Lakewood and Brookshire, and I've had 2 incidents in my neighborhood in the last 6 months. I had a young man that was sleeping on my porch in front of my house, drugged out. I called the police, and the police never came. I also had another incident where I had a transient sleep in front of our house, and he came and opened the water hose and he urinated in the front yard, and I called the police, and again, I waited and waited for the police for 3 hours. The police never came. They said, they have other business to take care of, but I feel like I'm not being listened to. I feel like I pay over $6,000 in property taxes a year now, and I keep my yard beautiful. I, comply with all the city laws. I've now retired. I want to enjoy my front yard. We also have issues with potholes. I've called the city to come in potholes. It took them 6 weeks to come out, and they barely put a patch on it, and there's still tons of debris and potholes that the whole street needs to be fixed, and nobody wants to address. I've sent an email to the parks and not Parks and Recs, but one of the commissions that was on the website, and a video showing the potholes, because I had big holes. They came and patched 3 of them, but left the rest of the street not maintained. And it's ridiculous. Something needs to be done with transients, with getting potholes fixed, with the tree situation. For those who want a tree, I would like a tree, but if the tree is going to damage or is not a safe tree for my kids, or grandkids, when they come in the future, I don't want that type of tree. But, like they said, there's parks, there's other city streets that can use those trees. Put them there. But give people a choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marco Cruzado. I'm going to say a few words with regards to the tennis courts. I've been working here in Downey for the past 23 years. I play tennis, some of the people sitting here. And I've noticed that there's a lot of demand for the sport now that are going, especially in the weekends. I see a lot of people waiting for us to finish a game so they can start playing. And I think getting rid of a tennis court and putting something else, maybe it would be a better idea to add an extra tennis court there instead of taking it out. So just so you know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Noting no further speakers, non-agenda public comment is now closed. I did want to mention, I did want to acknowledge the people that are in attendance here. I know we talked about Furman Park, we talked about the homeless situation, the potholes. In regards to the potholes, we're doing the best we can to fix all of our streets here in the city of Downey. Eventually, our plan is to make our streets without potholes. But it does take time, so I ask you all to be patient. And then the homeless problem, it's a problem that we're experiencing throughout the state. I ask you to be vigilant. Please call Downey Police, and so that way they can help you with whatever issues that you are having. If you do not receive a response, please email me. My email is bpacheco@downeyca.org. And then I don't want to forget the Furman. The reason why we wanted to hold off on it is because we wanted to make sure that we had all the speakers have an opportunity to speak, so that way we addressed every single one of the concerns that you may have regarding Furman Park. So I'm going to pass it on over to our city manager so you can make a comment in regards to Furman Park.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, again, on behalf of the council, thank you for coming out and expressing your concerns and your passion, quite frankly, about tennis. I will tell you that if you switched out tennis and you had a bunch of basketball people here, we would hear the earful about basketball or soccer and all of those combined. We spent about a year and a half doing a strategic master plan for our park. We had various neighborhood meetings. It was posted in Downey Patriot. It was put on our social media. We got the word out as much as we possibly can to get input in terms of what were the priorities. And as passionate as one may be about tennis, the number of requests that we get for soccer far exceeds that. The number of requests that we get for football as well. We have the Razorbacks and some of the others that feel that they're the stepchild to every other. We've had them here, and we have in full force saying, it's the stepchild because we play second fiddle to every other sport in the city. So it's a constant issue that we have in terms of balancing. Yes, one court is something in your belief is that one court is too many, one court is to reduce. We have to 8 in independence and 8 in permanent. But we're also spending roughly $350,000 to refurbish the tennis courts. That's not an insignificant amount of money that's going into the tennis courts at Furman. So it's something that we continue to be vigilant about. Heard an earful from every youth rider that kids sign up to, whether it's AYSO or it's whoever it may be, about needing more fields and needing more fields. The truth of the matter is that we are that poor city, many more city don't have the amount that open space that we need that we have. That's the simple fact. That's the simple fact. And what we are doing is we are working over those parks in order that we can play on them, to making the investments in those parks. For parks are even going to that fields, synthetic fields, that we can play on them This is what's happening. Because what's happening is that the parks get beat up soccer and baseball or whatever and softball. So they get really beat up and they don't have a chance to rest and recuperate. So what we're doing is replacing some of that with synthetic fields. Again, we're repurposing all these developments as well, and making sure that they're up to grade, that the water drains properly, that they're not any cracks in them. So there is a copy of that master plan that's out there. I know that it's not exactly what we are doing here, but we are on one hand investing a significant amount of money in the rest of the tennis courts. And so that's our issues. Tonight there was a lot of questions about various issues in the city. 65% of our budget goes to public safety. We have 35% of it to go to the rest of all the other services in the city. And the voters have said public safety is the number one issue that we have, and that's where we want our money to be spent. And so our fire and police departments are one of the top police and fire departments around. So that's where we made the investment to make sure that we continue to have the best police and fire. Because if you're having illness or you're having a heart attack, you want that fire department there right away. Or if somebody's at your house, you want your police department there. We hired 10 police officers this year. The homeless issue, I've addressed that a little bit. I know it's very frustrating, but we've also spent close to $500,000 on preventive measures this year to keep those numbers low. We also have a lot of volunteer groups that are doing stuff on the homeless side. We're one of the few cities that's kept our numbers down. They haven't gone up. That's not satisfying necessarily to each of you, but it's something that we'll continue to do and we'll continue to be vigilant on. Our roads, I think I've said that as well. We have what we call a pavement master plan that addresses the worst streets in the city first. We don't have enough money to do every street, so we address the worst ones. And the idea is that you have some that are being patched up, that have some issues, but it doesn't really those streets are so far gone, it doesn't do us any good to go in there and put a top layer of it and to make it look pretty, because that's just money that we are taking away from a street that needs to be totally rehabbed. And so it's chasing, throwing good money after bad. So that's not something that we want to do. And our big challenge right now is trying to get that money flowing from the state into our coffers to address the streets. And even at that, if you look at all the major thoroughfares, we've spent a lot of money. Last year, people were complaining like crazy about Lakewood between Telegraph and Gallatin. Why didn't they finish Lakewood? And that was one of our number one complaints. And we ended up, finally being able to address that. So from Lakewood, from city limit to city limit, we're doing Firestone Boulevard now will be finished from city limit to city limit. We're doing that. We're doing parts of Paramount. A lot of the major thoroughfares. But the residential streets are the ones that we need to really, really focus on some more, and what we're trying to do. So 65% of the budget is going to public safety. There's not a lot of left over. That is one of the reasons that you have Measure S and why Measure S was passed, is in order to take care of the other issues in the city that needed to be addressed, which is our library, our fire stations, and our parks. Again, I know that's not going to satisfy some of you, but at the end of the day, it's really trying to balance the needs of all of the athletes in the city in terms of where they want to play, whether it's soccer, whether it's baseball, whether it's softball, and trying to find an equilibrium in terms of what is the number one issue that people have said that they wanted to have addressed. That said, we've also were fortunate enough to get some additional funding from the county in order to create another park down at South Rancho Park. It's 5 acres, and it's about $10 million that will be invested for park use as well. So we're trying to continue to leverage as much as we can and to balance all of the things that the residents want us to do. We just can't all do it at the same time. So we'll continue to be vigilant on that. Again, I know that's probably not the best answer for many of you, but it's something that it's not an easy task for this council to balance, but we're trying to address everybody's needs in that. So thank you. Madam Mayor, that's all I have for my comments.
Thank you. And thank you again, everyone, for being in attendance. Our next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Are there any council members that would like to remove or abstain from an item?
I'm going to abstain from item number 6.
Public comment. Are there any comments from the public on consent calendar items only?
Move to close public comment.
Move to close.
Second.
Thank you. Is there a motion and a second to approve
Move to approve.
Second.
Please vote.
The consent calendar was approved with Councilmember Saab abstaining from item number 6 and Mayor Rodriguez and Councilmember Frometa excused.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, administrative report. We have one administrative report tonight. Lease agreement with Verizon Wireless for cell tower site at City of Downey Public Works Maintenance Yard. One, introduce ordinance, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Downey approving a land lease agreement and memorandum of lease with SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless, and approve a lease agreement and memorandum of lease agreement with Los Angeles SMSA Limited Partnership, a California Limited Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless for a cell tower site at the City of Downey Public Works Department Maintenance Yard. City Manager Livas, do we have a staff providing this report?
Madam Mayor, we do. That'll be Aldo Schindler, Community Development Director.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you, City Manager. Tonight we have before you a lease agreement with Verizon Wireless for the installation of a cell tower at the Public Works Yard. If you've ever had lunch, dinner, or shopped in the Promenade, the Downey Landing, or visited anybody at Kaiser or live in the surrounding area, you know that it's a dead zone for Verizon. The coverage is close to nil in that area. Verizon is aware of that as well and has been attempting for years to get a new cell tower installation in that area. Back in 2016, they approached staff with some options for some sites in that area. The site that we're proposing tonight, as mentioned, is in the city's Public Works Yard. But prior to that site, we looked at 4 different sites in Independence Park. That was the primary location that was discussed. So staff from the Community Development Department, the Parks Department, and the Public Works Department got together to assess those sites and their relationship to the park and the surrounding community. The first site was to install a tower incorporated into a light pole outside the softball field, something similar that you've seen at Discovery Park that was installed there by AT&T. It was really big. There was clear visibility from the neighbors to the east in this section over here. And so we asked them to look at a different location. And also, as you've seen through the Measure S projects, we've gone through various improvements in our parks. So whether it be Independence Park or any other park, we're highly sensitive to adding new infrastructure to our parks so that we don't obstruct any improvements in the future. The second location was to post a monopine on the southern portion of the park. But that would require removal of trees. And once again, as mentioned, we are concerned about any future improvements. Back then, we were also contemplating the futsal courts, which were installed there, so there was conflicts with that improvement as well. The third location was also monopine, and that was next to the tennis courts. And once again, we were hypersensitive to any future improvements in the parks and adding more infrastructure to the parks.
So trees and tennis is a theme.
Trees and tennis is a theme tonight. The last location in the park was was on the southwest corner adjacent to the tennis courts, and that was going to be a light structure as well. And once again, as mentioned, sensitive to any future park improvements and adding infrastructure. All of these locations carry with it the equipment that surrounds the cell tower, and that also consumes a lot of area and can be an eyesore to parks. And so another reason why that wasn't attractive. So we then looked at what was next to it and worked with Verizon, worked with our Public Works crew, and chose the site at the Public Works yard, which is in that corner there. The Public Works Department didn't have a problem with it. It's not going to impede any of their operational characteristics. The installation also isn't going to pose any immediate challenges to them as they deal with their day-to-day operations. This slide shows you the proximity to the administrative office at the Public Works yard as to where it would go. In that yellow highlighted section, those palm trees would be removed. The area around there would be approximately 424 square feet, and it would be fenced off, and they would be using the same type of green screening to cover the base of that monopole so that you wouldn't see it when you drive by. Here's a close-up of that
What's the top going to look like?
Pardon?
What's the antenna going to look like?
The antenna is going to look like this simulation that's coming. So there's an existing view from the park looking eastbound from Bellflower.
It's where the tree on the, okay.
There you go. So we're going to remove those two palm trees. We're going to have a monopine back there. That monopine is going to be 50 feet high and once again have all the correct characteristics of a pine tree from the base all the way through the top and thick enough to where it conceals the antennas. Here's another perspective from Independence Park, and there's the monopine. Another perspective from a neighboring property, and the monopine. And this is from the industrial park off of Bellflower, and this is looking north, and the pines in the rear. In terms of the lease terms, we negotiated with Verizon, as mentioned, for the last 3 years, and we pushed hard on the lease rate, pushed hard on the incremental increases in years 2 through 10. We also conducted a survey. A lot of cities are dealing with cellular activity, but specific for these freestanding poles, we found a good amount of data. We actually surveyed 51 different cities, all the way from San Francisco into Orange County. And what we were seeing is the average rate per month was $2,493. The lowest was $1,100 in the city of Cypress, and the highest was $5,000 in the city of Newport. And Newport's unique. You've got the ocean, you've got view preservation, and you've got those challenges, and so the prices spike quite a bit. And so we've negotiated $4,000 per month for the first year, and for years 2 through 10, 3% increases. And the initial term is for 10 years, and we would also have 4 5-year extensions that would have to be approved by both parties. So you've got a total term of 30 years if all of the extensions were approved. And important to us as well was access by our fire and police departments to that cell tower if there was an emergency, so they can access that frequency. And there's a termination clause, as in most agreements, and ours is at 60 days if either party defaults or would like to be removed from that agreement.
What do you mean by access to frequency?
Absent the technical terms, it's access to any of the cellular frequencies that are available at that tower would be available to our public safety entities. So if there was an emergency of some sort, police and fire would work in partnership with Verizon, provide to gain technical access to be able to use those frequencies of that tower. We also, Verizon...
That has to be negotiated with Verizon?
Yes, it does have to be negotiated with Verizon.
They don't cooperate with that, typically?
They do cooperate, but what we talked about was what type of notification would be required versus a week, versus hours, versus days, and they complied with a 24-hour notice or based on the level of the emergency providing access.
What did they want?
It started out that they wanted more time. I believe we started out at a week, and then we chipped away from it from there.
They wanted a week in a case of emergency?
Yeah, and then it kind of chipped away from there, and they were flexible.
So hold the emergency for a week for Verizon to come back?
Well, yes, they wanted different types of notifications into that.
Oh, interesting.
Lastly is the recommendation. It's staff's recommendation that we approve the Verizon cell tower at the Public Works yard with the terms that were discussed for the lease. And I'm here to attempt to answer any questions that you might have.
So the length, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. What's the length of the lease again? I'm sorry.
The initial term is 10 years.
Okay, and then what happens if, so who owns the pole and the equipment?
That is Verizon.
Okay, and then, so they'll maintain it and they'll remove it if it becomes dilapidated? It's their responsibility?
Their responsibility, yes, with this agreement.
And they're gonna take a month to respond, like they wanted us to respond to if we have an emergency?
Now, we've got quicker triggers in there to respond to any sort of blight to that pole.
Are they here, Verizon here?
Yes, Verizon reps are here and can answer any questions specific to the tower or their industry.
I'd like to hear from them.
Sure.
A question, maybe it'd be for them, maybe be for you, but so, like, we already spoke to Public Works, and they're okay with the placement of it, but during the installation of it, what is the process going to be for that? Because I'm going to assume, because that area is kind of narrow, so I don't know how Public Works is going to be able to, or even the fire department, because they have their backup repair place there. During the installation, how long is that going to take? What type of impact will that have on city services for that?
Sure. Joseph's here from Public Works Department. He could speak to the intricacies of what those logistics are going to be. Once again, Public Works was comfortable with installation and operation not obstructing their daily operations.
I was just, because with that, I just during the actual installation was my concern, because that's going to, obviously it's going to be a little bit more to actually install it, and that'd probably block a good portion of it. So I just wanted to make sure that we've accounted for that, to make sure that it's not going to affect our services while they're installing the pole.
Any further questions, comments?
No.
No.
Thank you.
I'll assume that they can answer that it's going to be.
Joseph can step up and answer the specific questions about the logistics of installation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have two entrances and exit. We have a north and a south end. If they'll be working at the south end, we've already made it very clear to them that they need to let us know. We prefer they work on weekends if they need to. They're also trenching across from their point of connection with Edison, and they're aware that they need to they either have to put plates or coordinate sections of their work. So it should not interfere with our operations.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to now invite up the individuals from Verizon.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. My name is Mike Farraher. I am here on behalf of Verizon Wireless. I am in charge of municipal engagement. I have worked hand in hand with Mr. Schindler, as well as in the past with Mr. Konsunji, Public Works. I'm here to answer any questions for you. I thank Mr. Schindler for his thorough and clear report. I think it does a good job of representing our intentions here for what I believe is a very well-designed site. If you have any specific questions, I'm here at your...
I have a question. So what kind of plan do you guys have in place to maintain these cell phone sites?
Certainly, typically, in the boilerplate language of the lease, there are very thorough requirements for maintenance of a particular facility. It's in our best interest to maintain the facility so that it's operational. These things are touched quite frequently. So if any particular issue came to became aware to us, it would certainly, it would certainly warrant immediate attention.
So aesthetics. Tell me about aesthetics. What kind of a policy? What kind of plan do you guys have with respect to the upkeep and the what I asked earlier, but also the aesthetics? Do you guys tell me about your company policy, and how do you guys handle, for example, a site that isn't aesthetically pleasing? How would you guys handle that?
Well, typically, these types of questions or types of issues would be handled on a case-by-case basis, site-by-site specifically, based upon permitted site design, that sort of thing. We aim to maintain them in the fashion that they were intended to be maintained.
And do you guys take different consideration depending on the location? For example, if it's on a busy street, do you guys tend to maybe make sure that it's upkept a little bit better than an area that's not as well kept? as not seen as often or not as much traffic in the area. Would that be safe to say that you guys would maintain that a little bit more closely?
We certainly, it's certainly our paramount endeavor to maintain things in as optimal working order and functional as possible.
Do you know how many cell phone towers you guys have in Downey?
I would have to plead ignorance. I don't know off the top of my head.
I could tell you, you guys have 3.
Okay.
And I could tell you that as a resident, Verizon has been a very, very poor community partner. I myself I visited all 3 today. I was very familiar with one that I have been asking our Public Works, who's been asking Verizon to maintain it properly, and that is on Florence and Downey Sanford Bridge. And I could tell you that if that's any indication how you guys are going to continue to, maintain your cell phone towers in our city and any other city, I don't know how any other city would permit you to come in. The tower on Florence and that street and Florence and Sideview it's abysmal. It's terrible. Wires everywhere. We asked you guys months ago to clean it up, and to hear tonight that you guys want our PD to give you guys 30-day notice if there's an emergency. I don't know what Verizon's public information policy is here, but it's pretty poor. And to tell you, it's going to be really difficult for me to even consider this tonight, because if it was in the private business, I certainly wouldn't hire you guys. I wouldn't give you guys an opportunity to continue to expand. So having said that, and I'm sorry if I'm being a little abrasive, but I am upset. And I'm glad that you came with other people here so that maybe someone can answer what the plan going to be. But what are you guys going to do with the other 3 sites? The one on Old River School Road by near where Councilman Ashton lives, it's terrible. It looks like it's a nuclear notification thing from the 60s. It's horrible. And the one on Downey Avenue, so there's 3. This would be the 4th one. The one on Downey Avenue. So I guess my question is, would you guys maintain those cell phone towers? Would you maintain it in the same manner had it been in Newport Beach or in Pasadena or in Cerritos? I doubt it. So it's all yours.
Sure. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
So
we have time.
First and foremost, certainly, I appreciate the opportunity. First and foremost, I think about a year ago, I joined the team. Our team was assembled at that time. The network recognized that they historically lacked an arm to maintain good good relationships with municipalities.
How big is Verizon? What's the worth of Verizon? How many billions of dollars is Verizon worth?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, I think they have the capacity to do so.
No, I understand. They do have the capacity. So they recognize that they lacked that particular component within the network. So that's why they put together this team. I am familiar with, at the very least, one of the sites that you alluded to, recognizing that this is sort of a sidestep on this particular application before this council, but notwithstanding, I do want to address that. I was brought to my attention. I would first and foremost recognize your staff has been vigilant in pursuing doggedly our team to try to find a solution. I can assure you that we are working internally to try to find something that can perhaps improve the visual aesthetic of the Florence site in particular. That's something that we have looked into. I can tell you that just as one measure, when this was brought to our attention, the very first thing we had was there were some conduits that were not in line with the same color. I immediately had those painted to match monochromatically, so that was something that we could do immediately. It is our aim to maintain goodwill and foster a relationship. We are certainly interested, and we're open to further discussions about what could be done to improve the visual aesthetic?
It's just not, I'm sorry, it's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable. It makes no sense to give you guys more opportunity to do business when you guys have failed miserably in the 3 other sites that you have, and to say that we're going to do, that's what I've been hearing for 8 months for that site. It can't be that hard. It can't be that hard. So that's not gonna cut it.
I certainly,
so that's not gonna cut it. And frankly, and I'm sure my my fellow council members weren't aware of those things. I mean, it's near where I walk every single morning, so I'm very familiar with it. And I said, I got a little gut feeling that their other sites are probably the same. And I got the list, and sure enough, I guess I wasn't disappointed because it was what I expected. Same thing. So that's not acceptable to say we're going to. I can't vote on this unless there's a plan that you guys are going to fix those other sites and make them presentable. I mean, it's just the way it is. But I'm sorry to cut you off, but go ahead.
That's quite all right. So, respectfully, I don't have a concrete plan in place today. So, that notwithstanding, I would suggest that this particular site that's before this council is very well designed. It will not be. It's probably the most least obtrusive design that we have.
But it's in a public works yard. That's awesome. Thank you. Congratulations. What about the one where there's 24,000 cars that drive by every day? That's the one that matters.
Certainly.
And the one on River School Road that's in front of kids go to school every day, where 1,000 kids go to school and they got to look at this obscene wires in front of the school. Those are the one that matters. I mean, great. You guys, congratulations. You're doing a great job in the public works yard. The other ones are the ones that matter. So to not have a plan, I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable. Yeah. And Verizon's big enough where you can't have a plan. This cannot be unique to our city. I'm sure, unfortunately, like most cities, people look at something, they don't know what it's about. When that one was built, the neighbors across the street had cracks in their stucco. They had, it was terrible. And the response from Verizon was nothing. Well, we're big. We can do it. It's okay. And, so, when I asked earlier about the plans and the response and the responsibility as community partners, I'm sorry, but miserable failure here.
I certainly take your comments to heart. I understand your position. I would suggest that my role, as I have been relatively new to the company, I don't have the breadth or the length of time with the company to have been involved in discussions regarding a site that is not before this council. I would suggest that it is paramount of concern to us to make sure that we have a good working relationship with the city. I think that this particular site is a good step forward. The site on Florence does have some rather challenging technical components, including an 8-foot by 10-foot underground vault that poses some just logistical and dimensional challenges. So these comments and your concerns have not fallen on deaf ears. As I stated, your staff has been vigilant in pursuing a possible solution. We are working on that. I'm not paying you lip service. I'm simply just saying this may take some time.
How much time?
Ultimately, I can't speak to that specifically, but I will say this: if it goes to the point where ultimately we need to replace that particular facility, then that may be the option that we have to pursue. That's not something that's outside the realm of possibilities. At this juncture, there may be some other solution. We have not found that solution as of yet, but certainly your concerns are not falling on deaf ears with Verizon. I can assure you.
So just to counter off of that, in 2 weeks, could you at least come back to us and have a plan, like we're going to do this to this site, this to this site? Could you, not necessarily say it's going to be fixed in 2 weeks, but just say, hey, in 2 weeks, this is what we want to do to upgrade those sites to make them feasible?
I would be more than happy to avail myself.
So like if we tabled this for till the next meeting?
If we get a concrete, well-thought plan, thank you, Councilman Ashton, for bringing that up. But yes, if they come back with, not a promise, I don't want a promise, a plan, then, then I'd probably be more inclined to, consider that they're a viable vendor, a partner that we can, continue to allow to lease on our property. But absent of that, I can't in good conscience vote on this.
Then, if that's something that we want to do, then maybe we table it, and if we can come back with a plan in 2 weeks, we can talk about it at the next council meeting and see what the progress is. If that's workable with, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, is that workable with you?
So that is, but I'd also like to take public comment as well.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, I would like to now open this item for public comment. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak on this matter? Seeing none?
No, there's one. It's from AT&T.
My name's Nelson Olvera. I appreciate Alex very much, and I completely agree with him. I used to have Verizon myself, but we switched to T-Mobile because their service is pretty appallable. I hope I'm choosing the right word there, but I'm completely in agreement to end the tower, basically. I don't think we need it, to be honest. It's a way to bring Verizon to compete with T-Mobile, which provides better service, in my opinion. I'm not a spokesman for them, but it's my honest opinion from...
But we hear you now.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
I can hear you now.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Seeing none, I'd like to...
Hi, good evening. My name is Marianne Neward. I'm the rep that has been working with Aldo and Yvette on the lease negotiations. Marianne Neward with Reliant Land Services, 1745 West Orangewood Avenue, Orange, California. You had made some questions. Actually, first I wanted to say thank you to Yvette and Aldo for their time over the last 3 years in working on this lease. You had made some comments. I'm only here to speak on this facility and this lease, or proposed lease. Maintaining this facility, we've been approved through the planning, and there are specific conditions in regards to branch density, maintenance, the look of it. So we would have to maintain the facility based on the conditions of approval that were previously approved. I can't speak on previous approved facilities for Verizon, but this specific has the conditions are spelled out so that it does have to be maintained and look and appear the way that we're proposing it in the photo sims. So I just wanted to clear that up. And if there are any other questions, actually I did want to bring up accessing the facility. So we did, there was negotiation on the city's access to the facility, and in the lease it does state the lessor, which is the city, shall provide notice of any such access to the lessee, which would be Verizon, as soon as reasonably practical following such any such emergencies. So we can't wait our 30 days or a week even. So it's definitely reasonably practical. So I just want.
But you started with 30 days, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean that it's kind of the standard lease.
Okay.
So because I do have to make a comment, these facilities, you can't just have somebody walking up and having any old landlord having access to this type of equipment. So it was the standard lease, but obviously with the cities and 911 and all of that, safety, it does change based on the landlord and the property. So, but if you have any other questions in regards to the lease or this facility, I could help answer any of those questions.
So maybe I kind of misunderstood part of the emergency access part of it. So if something were to happen, like let's say, like, I don't know, like somebody broke into that area, is that what we're talking about, the emergency access to get police into that area to get somebody out of that area? Or is it actually emergency access to use the cellular service coming from that tower? Or both? I mean,
I guess that would be, I guess, on the intent of what the city had requested. But what I'm reading,
I think the intent was to have access to the facility.
just the site, in
The
case
site.
something happened, we need to get in there to save lives. That, okay.
That's right, we needed to
Because it's fenced
enter.
off.
I was misunderstood.
Yes, because we needed to enter.
It's fenced off, yeah.
And we
Okay.
negotiated that notice to Verizon would happen as soon as practicable. So that could happen after we've addressed the emergency. Whenever we could get to it, we'd give them notice, not 30 days before or a week before. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I just want to thank Aldo, great presentation, and I want to thank the individuals who came from Verizon for coming here before us at the City Council meeting and for answering some of the questions. There are some concerns that my colleagues do have, so it appears that we are going to need to, we will need to table this item to another date in the future. I don't know if 2 weeks would be sufficient.
I'll make a motion that we table the item
To a future
to a
date.
date uncertain. Mr. Schindler, I guess, can negotiate with them. I certainly hope that next time they come with the proper people that to answer, but more importantly with the proper plan, because I already expressed what I thought.
No, I completely understand.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oral or whatever.
The motion was approved with Councilmember Frometa and Mayor Rodriguez excused.
Thank you. Next, staff member comments. City Manager Livas, do you have any comments?
No comments, other than, gosh, I didn't know trees would be such a big issue, but no comments, thank you.
Thank you. The meeting is now adjourned in memory of Master Sergeant Luis F. de Leon Figueroa, 31 of Chicopee, Massachusetts, and Master Sergeant Jose J. Gonzalez, 35 of La Puente, California, who were supporting Operation Freedom Sentinel. Marjorie Frisco, longtime Downey resident, victims of the tragedy of Santa Cruz Island, victims of September 11th, and victims of Hurricane Dorian. A moment of silence. That concludes our meeting. Thank you.